Now, top of our agenda on the table today is to understand the reason behind the axing of state firms at approval given a nod by the cabinet. What informed this? Is it realistic? Is it genuine? And Kenyans are also asking if they are really genuine that they will not lose their jobs, owing to the harsh economic times. But we also have critics and political analysts who are saying perhaps it's just a strategy for alignment for 2027 campaigns. They're saying the president ought to be a little bit more realistic and avoid early campaigns. Do you agree or not agree? Let us listen in to the Wiper Party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, remarks on the 2027 preparations, and then we can come back with a panel.
It is now official that what William Ruto is trying to do is to formulate his re-election campaign strategy. We want to tell him the country is so united, more than ever before. In fact, it has never been as united as it is since independence, around one goal: to defeat William Ruto at the next elections.
All right, Kevin, let me start with you. Being a common mwananchi, it would be very, very confusing to know when are we genuine and when are we not. Yeah. Because as far as we look at development, there seems to be a bit of political interference. But how do you know the difference? Because wouldn't you agree with me, however, that we genuinely have these issues that, according to the cabinet, have necessitated this move? Increasing fiscal pressures arising from constrained government resources, the demand for high-quality services, including health services, the growing public debt burden. Don't we really have these, problems? Because this is the first cabinet meeting, by the way, of President William Ruto 2025. So is it not necessary to do what the cabinet is giving a nod to do?
The idea is very good. The idea to be able to, merge and exercise proper efficiency for government to be able to deliver and exercise its mandate is very good. Unfortunately, a number of issues raise concerns, and hence the reason why, for instance, Mheshimiwa Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka would equate this to politics. Because you ask yourself, one is why now? Remember, we've been saying here it's been more than a decade. Because the moment we talk about corporations, mergers, then we go back to our constitution of Kenya 2010 and we derive our narratives and conversations around functions of counties, functions of national government. And so the reason why there might not be very close linkages to the truth, which is why I thought this was a trial and error mechanism, is because there have been lots of conversations around, one, political goodwill to devolve all functions that have been given to county governments by the Constitution. Many conversations have gone on, but if you look at the substance of some of the functions that are being devolved, they do not really equate to what the mwananchi expects in terms of service delivery. For example, when President William Ruto took over the reins of power, he said, in the next 6 months, we are going to ensure that all functions that are given to counties are devolved. Now, of course, they hastened that through the agencies that are in charge, IG, Intergovernmental Relations and Technical Committee, the State Department of Devolution, the Council of Governance, among others, and ensured that a few things were done. For example, that libraries and museums and all these cultural centers that were initially held by national government were actually taken to the counties. But you ask yourself, on a day-to-day basis, how many Kenyans walk into our museums?
All right.
How many Kenyans walk into our libraries to just go and, undertake research and all that, as opposed to a critical function like health? So how many Kenyans walk into a health facility? How many Kenyans would want to ensure that roads are properly done and you go back to roads as a function and look at what is still held by the national government, Kura and Kera and all these other issues? Move it further to agriculture. As a backbone, the Constitution says that agriculture is devolved. Agriculture is devolved. In fact, it is indicated there. And that the only thing that the national government can be able to undertake is probably policy issues, among others. But look at the conversation we are having today. That if you take Agricultural Development Corporation, for example, and you merge it, what are you telling counties? What are you telling the backbone members of those who are in the agricultural sector against the goodwill to ensure that agriculture is actually functioning. So you take it and you merge it with who? And you ask yourself, where is the goodwill to be able to boost up macroeconomic programs of this country against the struggling economy that we have? And you move it further and you ask yourself, bring in the private sector. So companies in this country are closing down. CMC we just saw the other day, and CMC is one of the biggest producers of agricultural equipment in this country. So if you go back to say, for instance, we are merging ADC with who? How will farmers buy tractors to be able to put down their, tilling and all those preparations for their land? Move it further to counties. We have counties where even governors promise to help farmers to till and plow their lands. What do they use? The government is not telling us the mitigative measures to be able to deal with some of these challenges that really are much more closer to the citizen, as opposed to the things that probably Mheshimiwa Stephen Kalonzo would term as political. And so the president has to be very categorical around, one, the goodwill, to be able to ensure that functions are following resources, and that the biggest issue that we are talking about, which is partly, say, for instance, human resource, that Kenyans are also critically assured of safeguarding their jobs and precisely their pockets.
Now, I want to hear from Ramogi, because I want to understand the budget lines. What we're trying to do here is to save as much as we can. Remember, President Ruto is big on stop the borrowing. Let us be able to sustain ourselves. There's another end of pressure from IMF. You know what's happening with the World Bank. Now we have a 47th president, Donald Trump, who could be a little different from Biden. But what are your thoughts then? Is it really going to work for the budget? Are we going to be realistically going to be saving about 2-point-something billion from our budget, and where from?
It's our hope that there will be savings. But like I said, from what the Mheshimiwa was saying here, it looks like Cabinet sat down and made an approval, which apparently by law is null and void, because it's neither here nor there. So that means Parliament still has to give its nod on several of these pieces of legislation. And even if they were to bring a super amendment bill, possibly equivalent to the tax amendment bills of 2024, and bring it all together simultaneously.
Miscellaneous.
It will still take a while for Parliament to be able to go through all of them, because that would be a huge amendment program. Again, until we get there, what they have gone over and decided is neither here nor there. But let me comment on the need for austerity, even if it's marginal austerity. On one hand, we economists do not like austerity, because austerity means there's no money circulating in the economy. You are holding off money from the economy. And so you do not want to hold off austerity. Now, this is especially a big problem when you have a very high interest rate, as we do right now, which means, therefore, that Mwananchi cannot go and borrow money comfortably. The other day, we received a report that bank lending is shrinking. It's not as growing as it used to. That tells you that lending is not happening as it used to. Why? Our interest rates are very high. And so when you go to borrow, you do your math, what you're borrowing and what you want to invest in, it just doesn't marry. So you probably leave it off. And no investment, no borrowing means no investment. No investment means no jobs. No jobs means no savings. No savings means no investment. And so it's a circle of poverty. There's that. There's also the other problem of high tax. So the taxes are high, which means that the disposable income I would have, I have to give to KRA and perhaps remain with a very little margin. And the little margin I have now, I want to hold on to it as much as I can, so that I do not. So if you have very high interest rates and you have very high taxes, you cannot afford an austerity program. And I think that's where Mheshimiwa is coming from, that you cannot then deny people jobs through monetary policy, deny people jobs through fiscal policy, and you also want to deny them jobs by mergers and acquisition of some of these corporations. And so what they are saying is noble, that there is in fact need to take into consideration, one, that we have very high debt, two, that there is need for fiscal consolidation, three, there's an uncertainty because our benefactor has left power, Joe Biden, and we have the 47th president, and everybody is wondering, where will this gentleman hit next? Yeah, there's all that, but at the same time, you cannot tell us that you will have high taxes, you'll have high interest rates, and you'll also have austerity. It won't work.
Very interesting, because I'm looking at how many Kenyans are crying, probably not having a meal tonight as we're speaking. I was checking about the data, and they're saying, according to the World Bank data, the current unemployment rate in Kenya is around 5.7%. We're talking about people who are professionals but are still looking for work. Senator, let me hear from you, because clearly you've told us this will take a while. But even as we are seeing this happening, we have had a story here of a former deputy president doing quite a number of consultations in his village. In as far as politics is concerned, about to unveil a political party. Kalonzo Musyoka, your party leader, is giving some warnings in as far as development is concerned, vis-a-vis campaigns. You saw what happened to Honorable Salasia. President William Ruto responding to tribal politics. So Kenyans are asking me, when do members of parliament or leaders actually now begin working? Because even with this, there seems to be trust issues because of how politics is running vis-a-vis what the government is trying to do in order to give quality services to Kenyans. There's trust deficit as we're speaking.
Yes, there is, and I want to say that charity begins at home. That's why Gachagua has gone back to his home to rebuild the charity there. I understand he's facing a very difficult legal situation, and most probably it may not be sorted out in this regime, owing to all these allegations of bribery in the judicial system, failures and all that. And you see, the judiciary is very important for a country. In fact, I'm surprised when the Chief Justice finds it as a last resort that investigations being conducted against judges. You have the Judicial Service Commission, it has a process. Then if you unleash judges for investigation, it means if they are found culpable, then we're going to lose quite a number of judges, and they have to go through prosecution, and the whole thing goes round and round. So it is important that something positive is done in this country. Kenyans are very bitter. Kenyans are suffering. Anybody with a salary has serious and reasonable deductions, which you don't see value for. If you build houses which are expensive, the hustlers, in quotes, will never afford them. And then you have also reduced the earning of the middle class, or they never buy these houses, and they're going to remain empty shells there, where you're putting a lot of money which you have taken from people by force. And that's just one project. There are so many other. And Kenyans have looked at it, kept quiet. They're just looking at Ruto, if he doesn't know. As he walks around Western, people are just there to get whatever little handouts you can give. And they let you go, waiting for you in 2027. You have refused to form IBC. You have refused to work for Kenyans. You are spending a lot of money. Government is very expensive to move around. When you keep on moving around instead of sitting like back in State House and work for Kenyans. Kenyans want to see roads. Kenyans want to see Thwake Dam complete so that people can irrigate and create jobs. There's really nothing the government of Kenya is doing to create jobs. If anything, it is doing everything to make sure that there's no money in circulation. At the moment there's no money in circulation, an economy can never grow. Just as our colleague has said here, the economist, people want to hold on the little they have now, because when you lose it, you don't know what you do tomorrow. You have no savings, you have no investments, and there's something I want to tell the government.
All right.
That the go-downs in industrial area are closed. And there used to be a lot of businessmen, especially from the Indian community, who did a little bit of engineering there, a little bit of transport business, a little bit of storage business. But slowly by slowly, they used to hire a lot of Kenyans who will get 25,000 to 30,000 young graduates. They will have hope. But now they have gone away quietly, slowly by slowly. Some have gone back to India, others are in UK, others have gone to Tanzania, others have gone to Rwanda. When we keep on losing these investors and we are not having local investors do investment, what are you doing to the country? You are killing the country. So money needs to be in circulation. Stop traveling around the country. It is very expensive. Whatever is budgeted for State House, save it the way Kibaki used to do, plow it back to Treasury, let it go and build roads, let it build dams and things like that, and the country will prosper. But now Kenyans know that the brains in cabinet are deleted. There's only one brain in cabinet.
Is it?
There's only one brain in parliament. So nobody's thinking, really. You are frozen, you are scared, and you just sit there. And the country needs to move so that we can develop the country. Young people can have hope. Don't kill them. Don't kill brilliant Kenyans, even the ones from Muloti. If somebody can hack systems, you need that fellow to get to know how he's thinking, and he can be very useful for the government. Don't kill him.
All right.
Don't kidnap him. Sit with him, maybe put him into NSIS, and he'll come up with big ways of assisting the government. These are brilliant Kenyans who have been frustrated, have been jobless, or they became thieves. Therefore, it is a high time. We have a clean judiciary, we have a working executive, and we have happy Kenyans. I'm sorry, Kenyans are very unhappy today.
Now, Senator, allow me to just put you on the hot spot for a second here. You sit in the Senate, and oversight is very, very key. Now, Kenyans have said, a section of Kenyans have faulted the Senate to pretty much looking like it's unable to check the counties. You're talking about devolving corruption. Now, we have, duplications of roles. You've talked about that at county levels. You've talked about ghost workers. You've talked about overlapping, roles, just as what the government is doing now. And here you are saying this might not really work as foreseen for the government. Do you think you might be speaking a different language based on what Kenyans would have expected you to say, that it is very good so that we handle these overlapping and wasteful duplications to cut corruption?
Yeah, what happens is that if you allow devolution as it is in the Constitution, and if you support the counties, you have efficiency in the counties, there's a lot of oversight, even by Wananchi themselves, because these projects are in the village. But now when you don't release money in good time to the governors, 4 or 5 months, they borrow from the banks. Whatever little money they come, a lot goes there, a lot of it is lost into interest and mismanagement. So I want to agree that devolution has serious challenges in the country, orchestrated by the national government. Devolve health, devolve agriculture fully, devolve roads, devolve water. If a national government is still doing water plans, so what's the work of the governor? And now is Senate going to oversight national government doing, work for the counties. So we must now get serious with devolution. We must respect the Constitution. We must honor the Constitution. That's where the problem is. So Senate is doing its level best to do oversight. There is the counties and also the people. The people are doing bigger oversight than you can ever imagine. That's why governors who are errant, who are visited, and the message sent to them, you are a thief, your days are numbered.
All right, your days are numbered.
Doris, probably just to add on to that, because county is very close to my heart based on where I come from, County Governance Watch. We really must ask the Senate to support the National Assembly. And especially because if you look at the manner in which, for instance, we receive the audit reports from the Auditor General, the control of budget, and you sit back based on the information that we expect the senators to have, and then the governors are summoned, quote unquote, to the Senate, and look at the kind of questions that we see governors being asked. Personal issues which relate to local politics, as opposed to very serious concerns that are supposed to tackle transparency, accountability, and integrity issues, number one. Number two, we must ask the Senate to help support devolution. And you've asked very critical questions around disbursement of funds, which perennially is very late, despite President William Ruto's commitments that will ensure that counties get their monies on time. Issues of devolution of functions. And it is quite disheartening that even some of the strikes that we continue to see happening around is largely because it is hard to understand what government says, which is properly said and is the right thing to do, as opposed to veto qua ground. Because you say it here, but what is happening on the ground is the total, complete opposite of what we see happening. So we want to ask the Senate, through Senator Manzo, to be friends of devolution, and really by constitution to support devolution and ask those very critical concerns. And then lastly, Remember that the manner in which the budget is also developed and appropriated is based on the last audited accounts of the financial year. I believe that we are still lagging behind. I think it's either 2 or 3 years back, which means that the kind of budget margins that we are working with right now are not in tandem with the context, the economic context, the present day, because I think we are using the budget, the accounts of 2018, 2019, which is way behind. So if you look at the state of affairs and the economic issues, and of course Kenya shilling against the dollar in 2019, it is not what it is right now. And the cost of bread today and the cost of unga in 2019 or 2023 is not what it is right now. So if we can be able to strengthen mechanisms within Parliament and those institutions that are supposed to safeguard the interests of counties through the budget, I'm sure that we will be able to support counties to be able to do what the citizens expect them to do.
I have roughly 4 minutes to conclude, and I'm coming to you, but just a simple question. The Parliament is supreme, very, very supreme. And this has to go through Parliament, like you understand the Act of Parliament, etc. Do you trust the Parliament to be able to carry this mantle? Just 30 seconds that I can come to Ramogi real quick. We have to use the procedure. The Constitution is clear.
Unfortunately, no.
All right.
And based on the precedents that we have seen with the National Assembly, particularly that being Parliament, and engaging in critical issues of representation, the kind of trend that they have set is not one that is quite promising to a majority of Kenyans, including myself.
All right.
And so we ask our legislators to please up your arms, pull up your socks, and do much more better, because you are sitting in elective positions, and 2027, if it will be in 2027, is coming up.
It is coming up. Yeah. Ramogi, what would be your closing note? Because we have to move forward as this country.
Some of the parastatals there, like Jomo Kenyatta Foundation.
Right.
I grew up reading their books. I am surprised they are also struggling. 1. 2, I am learning today when I saw the circular that they were actually a corporation. So it makes sense that, come on, dude, wind up. If you can't deliver, just go. But I wanted to comment on the county thing.
Okay.
It's also close to my heart, and I've done some work on that. We need to devolve everything the Constitution says we need to devolve. You should remember that the Constitution-making process came after 2007 post-election violence. And one of the things that we told ourselves by giving ourselves the new Constitution was so that we don't find ourselves there again. And some of the vipengele that were put in that Constitution came from Mwananchi.
Vipengele
is articles. Came from Mwananchi because they were keen on those. Yes. In Mombasa, in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Turkana, the Constitution says that ports and harbors are devolved. Now, when the Transition Authority came, it reinterpreted that to say, no, but they're only devolved for internal lakes. So, because Kisumu port is, Lake Victoria is not national. So, the point I'm trying to drive home is that if that is not implemented as it is potential for political instability.
All right.
And we are building grounds for some very dangerous days ahead. We need to devolve what the Constitution says we should devolve.
Are you of the belief that the government is consulting experts as they should, like Senator said it should?
No, they usually consult experts, and then experts give the reports, and then they look at the reports and compare with their interests, and their interests win the day. So yes, they are consulting, but those consultations never really make the light of day.
Fair enough, your opinions matter. Let me hear from Senator. Senator, what should be your closing remarks this far?
Well, unfortunately, right now, Parliament is under capture, and that's why Kenyans were so upset with the Parliament and overran it, made serious destructions, and sent a very serious message to the members. In fact, if it was not for the tunnel and the new building, maybe more than 100 members of Parliament would have been killed by Kenyans. And I think that's, Kenyans should now think again, what is the best way to do? Because Parliament needs to do its work, it needs to oversight the government. You cannot have Parliament which is partly executive. Majority and minority must all check government. And I want to say that it is very important that we have opposition in the country. If Nelson Mandela joined the clerk, apartheid will still be ruling South Africa. So we must have a position. We are a multi-party nation, and this idea of another single party thing, everybody moving to single partyism, is not going to help the country. We need reforms.
This is very, very interesting, and you're talking about the opposition. I'll bring you back again, Senator, to speak about, is the church taking over the opposi's work? Are the Kenyans doing it on themselves? Kevin, I really don't have time, but I can give you 5 seconds.
I've donated this.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, 5 seconds.
Even as we talk about the merger, it is important that the county governments prepare themselves to take up what is duly theirs.
All right.
And 2 things that we must insist on is graft, that corruption issues in counties must be addressed, and then 2 is on-source revenue. Counties must also generate revenues and enhance that to a totality of what they can be able to get.
Indeed, a lot of work has to be done, and it will be done because the media is here to keep these particular people in check, just as you are the voter doing it. Odhiambo Ramogi, economist and CEO, Elim Capital Limited, thank you so much. Kevin Osido, a governance analyst, karibu sana again, and thank you for your time. Senator Dan Manzo, Senator Makueni, for representing your people and for your sentiments tonight. Thank you for sending in your feedback. My name is Anki Dorison. But remember, Donald Trump, in his inauguration speech, actually honored the late Martin Luther. How intriguing. Have a good night, but most exciting part of the show is the video of the week, where it is all about what Peter Selassie said to the president. This is very, very interesting. If you missed it, here's where you have it. Have a good night, and thank you for watching.
Mimi nataka nikuambia kwamba wewe ni mtu ambaye uko na moyo wa kusaidia nchi ya Kenya. Lakini kuna makatesi matapeli wako katika serikali yako ambao hawataki ujue ukweli wa maneno. Mimi najua you are a God-sent leader who was sent to come and save this nation. But kuna watu ambao wako hapo katikati wanataka kukutumia wewe vibaya ili ya kwamba nchi yetu isonge mbele. Mimi nataka wakati unaingia katika ile kura ambayo nataka kura za civil servant, Bwana Rais, nataka usilete karibu. Kwa sababu hao wakora wamekudanganya ukafinya payslip ya Mkenya. And that's why you see Kenyans are bitter with you, my